They say the sea keeps secrets, dark, terrible secrets buried beneath cold waters and forgotten by time, but sometimes those secrets refuse to stay buried. This is the story of Blackrock Lighthouse, standing alone on the jagged cliffs of Maine's northern coast. And this is the story of what happened during the winter of 1987, when lighthouse keeper Thomas Brennan worked his final shift. Thomas Brennan was a man of routine, 50, 3 years old, weathered by salt and solitude. He'd kept the light burning at Blackrock for nearly 2 decades. But on December 15th, 1987, something felt different. 3 more days, just 3 more days until retirement. The relief keeper, young Marcus Webb, was scheduled to arrive on the 18th. 3 days of solitude never bothered Thomas before. He preferred it actually, but as he climbed the spiral staircase to the lamp room that evening, an unfamiliar weight pressed against his chest. His boots echoed on the iron steps, each footfall sounding somehow wrong. Too loud, too hollow, as if the lighthouse itself had become emptier, more vast than it should be. The sound came from above, a slow, deliberate creaking like someone rocking back and forth in an old chair. But Thomas was alone. He was always alone. He stood there on the staircase, one hand gripping the cold railing, listening. The sound continued, back and forth, steady as a heartbeat. What the hell is that? Hello, is someone there? The lamp room was empty, just the great Fresnel lens, its prisms catching the dying sunlight and throwing fractured rainbows across the curved walls. But there, in the corner where no chair had ever been, was an old wooden rocking chair. The wood was dark with age and salt, and it was still moving, slightly, as if someone had just stood up from it. Thomas could see the worn impression in the seat, still compressed, slowly rising back to its original shape. That wasn't here this morning. I know it wasn't. Thomas approached the chair slowly. He reached out to touch it, then pulled his hand back. The wood was wet, not damp, but dripping wet, as if it had just been pulled from the ocean. A small puddle of seawater was forming beneath it, spreading across the wooden floor in dark tendrils, but that was impossible. This room was 5 stories above the water, 5 stories above the rocks, 5 stories above everything. Thomas tried to rationalize it. Maybe the chair had always been there and he'd just forgotten. Maybe the water was condensation from the temperature difference. Maybe he was just tired. 20 years was a long time to be alone with nothing but the sea and the light. Maybe his mind was finally starting to crack, like so many other keepers before him. He'd heard the stories. Isolation did things to people. Made them see things, hear things. He radioed the mainland as protocol demanded. Coast Guard Station, this is Blackrock Light. Radio check, over. Blackrock, we read you loud and clear. Everything okay out there, Tom? Yeah, just checking in. Weather's turning nasty. Storm front moving in tonight. Should pass by morning though. You've weathered worse. You'll be fine. You always are. 3 more days and you're done, right? Bet you can't wait to get off that rock. Yeah, 3 more days. Can't come soon enough. Well, hang in there, old timer. We'll see you on the 18th. Keep that light burning. Coast Guard out. But Thomas wasn't fine. As darkness fell and he lit the great lamp, watching the lens begin its eternal rotation, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The lighthouse had always been his sanctuary, his refuge from the complicated world of people and their endless noise. But tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt like a prison, or worse, like a trap slowly closing around him. He went through his evening routine, trying to find comfort in the familiar motions. Light the lamp, check the fuel reservoir, record the weather conditions, make dinner on the small stove, read before bed, the same routine he'd followed for 7,000 nights. But his hands shook as he wrote in the logbook, his handwriting shaky and uncertain. December 15th, 1987, 7:43 p.m., lamp operational, wind northeast at 20 knots and increasing, barometer falling rapidly, storm approaching, visibility decreasing, sea state rough and building. He paused, his pen hovering over the page. There, in his peripheral vision, a shadow moved across the wall. Not his shadow. The lamp created his shadow, and he knew exactly where it should be at every moment of its rotation. But this was something else. Something taller, Thinner, with arms that hung too long and fingers that seemed to reach across the entire room like grasping claws. Who's there? Show yourself. Nothing. Just the rotating beam creating moving shadows through the windows. Just light and darkness chasing each other in an endless circle, the same dance they'd performed for decades. But then he saw it, and his breath caught in his throat, his heart stuttering in his chest. There, pressed against the window from the outside, 5 stories above the crashing waves, reaching up from the darkness below, was a handprint, a wet, pale handprint with fingers spread wide, slowly sliding down the glass, leaving streaks of seawater behind. No, that's impossible. That's completely impossible. Thomas backed away from the window, his heart hammering against his ribs so hard he thought they might crack. The handprint remained, illuminated by each rotation of the lamp beam. He counted his lips moving silently, 1 rotation, 2, 3. The hand stayed pressed against the glass, leaving streaks of water that caught the light. 4 rotations, 5, 6. On the 7th rotation, when the beam swung back around, the handprint was gone, vanished as if it had never been there at all. But the water remained, running down the glass in rivulets that looked disturbingly like tears. Just the wind, just the rain, just my imagination. I'm tired. I'm stressed about retirement, that's all this is. But Thomas knew better. He'd seen too much in 20 years. The sea had a way of showing you things, real things, terrible things that couldn't be explained away by logic or reason. He descended the stairs to his quarters, each step an effort, his legs heavy as lead, his breath coming in short gasps. Thomas couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that handprint, those 2 long fingers pressed against the glass. He lit a lantern and began searching through old records, pulling open drawers and cabinets he'd ignored for years. Every lighthouse keeper maintained logs, detailed accounts of weather, ships passing in the night, routine maintenance, supply deliveries. He'd read through hundreds of them over the years during long, boring shifts when the sea was calm and the stars were bright, but he'd never looked for anything specific. Until now, until tonight, when he needed desperately to know if anyone else had seen what he'd seen. In the bottom of an old filing cabinet, behind decades of mundane reports and yellowed weather charts, Thomas found a locked drawer. He'd never noticed it before, or if he had, he'd never cared enough to open it. But now, with trembling hands that wouldn't stay steady, he forced the rusted lock with a screwdriver, the metal squealing in protest. Inside was a single item, a journal. The leather was cracked and water-stained, warped with age and moisture, the pages swollen and stuck together. The name embossed on the cover made his blood run cold. Samuel Brennan, 1923. Samuel, my grandfather. Thomas had known his grandfather kept the light before him. It was a family tradition, in a way. The Brennan family had served at Blackrock for 3 generations. But Samuel had died when Thomas was just a boy, barely old enough to remember his face. Drowned, they said, an accident during a storm, his body found at the base of the cliffs, broken on the rocks, his face turned up toward the lighthouse as if he'd been looking at it when he fell. Thomas's father never talked about it, never wanted to discuss how his own father had died, never explained why he'd refused to ever visit the lighthouse even after Thomas took the position, and now holding this journal, feeling its weight in his hands, Thomas understood why. October 3rd, 1923. Something is wrong with this place. I've been here for 5 years and nothing has ever bothered me. The solitude has always been peaceful, meditative even, but lately, for the past few weeks, I hear her at night. Singing, always singing that same lullaby, the one Catherine used to sing to our daughter before she could no longer sing anything at all. Thomas's hands trembled, the journal shaking so badly he could barely read the words. Catherine was his grandmother. She died giving birth to his father right here in the lighthouse in the little bedroom downstairs. There had been complications. The storm had been too strong to get her to the mainland in time. She'd bled out while his grandfather held her hand and the baby cried in the corner. That was the story Thomas had been told, a tragedy, a terrible, senseless tragedy, but just a tragedy, nothing more. October 17th, I see her now, not just hear her, I see her in the windows when I look up from my work, in the mirrors when I shave, in the water when I wash my face in the basin, always dripping wet, though she never went near the water. She was afraid of it, always afraid of the sea, afraid of the rocks, afraid of this place. She reaches for me with pale hands, her lips move but no sound comes out. Why won't she speak? Why won't she tell me what she wants? What does she want from me? Thomas flipped through more pages, his fingers leaving damp marks on the old paper. His grandfather's handwriting became more erratic, more desperate with each entry. Words crossed out violently. Sentences that trailed off into nothing, as if he'd forgotten what he was trying to say. Dark stains that might have been water, or might have been tears, or might have been something worse. October 24th. She brought others. I don't know who they are. Sailors, I think, based on their clothing. A woman with a child clutched to her chest. A man with half his face missing, eaten away by the sea. They stand in the corners and watch me. They're always watching, their eyes never blinking. The light keeps them here. Don't they understand? I can't turn off the light. Ships need the light. People will die if I turn off the light, but they don't care. The dead don't care about the living. They only care about their own suffering. October 31st. I understand now. She's not angry at me. She's trying to warn me. The lighthouse isn't just a lighthouse. It's something else. Something older than the stones it's built from. The light doesn't just guide ships to safety. It holds them here, all of them, everyone who ever drowned in these waters, trapped between the light and the darkness, unable to move on, unable to rest. And Catherine, my sweet Catherine, she's telling me I can't leave either. She's telling me I'm already dead. She's telling me I died the moment she did, that I've just been too stubborn to realize it. The final entry was dated November 1st, 1923, the day Samuel Brennan's body was found at the base of the cliffs, the day they said he'd slipped on the wet rocks during a storm, an accident, just a tragic accident. November 1st, dawn, I see them all now, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, in the water, on the rocks, climbing up the lighthouse like insects. They want me to join them. Catherine is at the front, leading them. She's smiling now, finally smiling after all these years. She says it's time. She says I've kept the light long enough. She says the entry ended there, mid-sentence. The pen had dragged across the page, leaving a long dark line, as if his grandfather had simply put it down and walked outside and jumped without another thought. Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. The sound came from the lamp room. Something had fallen, or something had knocked, a deep, resonant boom that echoed down the spiral staircase. Thomas stood frozen, the journal still in his hands, his entire body rigid with fear, listening. The singing he'd heard before was louder now, much louder. He could make out the words clearly, a lullaby his grandmother had sung, a lullaby his own mother had sung to him when he was small, a lullaby he'd thought he'd forgotten decades ago. It's just a storm, just a storm. Grandfather was losing his mind. Isolation does that to people. It's well documented in the literature. It's not real. None of this is real. I'm just tired and scared, and it's my last few days, and my mind is playing tricks on me. That's all this is. But even as he said it, even as he tried desperately to convince himself, Thomas heard the singing grow louder, and with it came another sound, water. Not rain beating against the walls from outside, but water dripping inside the tower. Drop by drop by drop by drop. A steady rhythm that matched the beating of his heart, getting faster and faster. The lamp. He had to check the lamp. That was his job. That was his responsibility. That was the only thing that mattered in this world. Ships depended on that light. Lives depended on it. Whatever else was happening, whatever else he was seeing or hearing or imagining, the light had to stay on. The light always had to stay on. That was the sacred duty of every keeper. With each step up the spiral staircase, the singing grew louder, echoing off the stone walls, and with it came other sounds, voices, dozens of voices, hundreds of voices, some crying, some laughing, some screaming in agony. all of them wet and distorted, as if calling up from deep underwater, from the bottom of the ocean itself. The walls of the lighthouse felt closer than before, the air thicker, harder to breathe, like trying to breathe underwater. Just check the lamp and go back down. Don't look at the walls, don't look at the shadows, don't look at anything else. Just the lamp, just the light. Focus on the light, but Thomas did look. At the landing halfway up, where a small window looked out over the churning sea, he saw her. A woman in a soaked white nightgown, her hair plastered to her face in dark strands, standing in a growing pool of seawater that spread across the floor like blood. She wasn't looking at him, she was looking up, always up, toward the light. Her hands were pressed together as if in prayer, and her lips moved silently, forming words Thomas couldn't hear over the sound of his own terrified breathing. Catherine, the woman's head turned slowly, too slowly, as if her neck was stiff from being underwater too long, the joints frozen. And when Thomas saw her face clearly, he understood why his grandfather had jumped. He understood why his grandfather had chosen the rocks over staying here one more night. Her eyes were gone, just dark, hollow sockets filled with seawater that somehow still saw him, still knew him, still recognized him as blood, as family, as one of them. Her mouth opened, and instead of words, seawater poured out, gallons of it, more than any body could possibly hold. It gushed from her mouth, from her nose, from those empty eye sockets, splashing onto the floor and running down the stairs in a torrent. And in that water, Thomas saw other faces, dozens of them, hundreds. All the souls claimed by the sea around Blackrock over the centuries, all trapped here, all suffering. No, this isn't real. You're not real. You can't be real. Thomas ran up the stairs toward the lamp room, away from the thing that wore his grandmother's face. But with each step, he heard more of them, voices rising from below. The man with half his face missing, the woman with her child, sailors with rope burns around their necks, fishermen with hooks through their eyes. All of them climbing, all of them following, all of them reaching for him with cold, wet hands that left water stains on the walls. Thomas burst into the lamp room, slamming the door behind him and throwing the bolt with shaking hands. The great Fresnel lens rotated steadily, sending its beam across the storm. Tossed sea, cutting through the darkness. For a moment, just a moment, he felt safe. The light would protect him. The light always protected him. That's what it was for. That's what it had always been for. Then he saw them in the windows, not just one face, but dozens. Pressed against the glass from outside, 5 stories above the rocks, defying gravity and reason and everything he knew about the world. Men, women, children, all drowned, all dripping, all staring at him with empty, accusing eyes that held nothing but rage and sorrow. Their mouths opened and closed like fish, and their hands pressed against the glass, leaving wet prints that didn't fade, multiplying until the entire window was covered. What do you want? What do you want from me? I didn't do anything. I didn't kill you. The sea killed you. The rocks killed you. Not me, not the light. I'm just doing my job, but that wasn't true, and Thomas knew it in his heart. His grandfather's journal had said it clearly. The light doesn't just guide ships, it holds them here. The lighthouse was built on something old, something that existed before the lighthouse, before the ships, before people came to these shores at all. A thin place, a place where the barrier between worlds was paper. Thin where the dead could linger, and the light, the constant rotating light, kept them trapped here, unable to move on, unable to rest. Caught forever in its beam, suffering for eternity. The light, it's the light. If I turn it off, if I let the darkness come, they'll be free. They can finally rest. His hand moved toward the switch, one flip. That's all it would take. Let the light die, and they would be free. Release them from their prison, end their suffering after all these years. His fingers touched the cold metal of the switch, and for a moment, he felt relief. Blackrock, this is Coast Guard Station, emergency traffic. We have a vessel in distress. Fishing boat Sarah Me, 8 souls aboard, lost in the storm, taking on water, navigating by your light. They need your beacon. It's the only thing keeping them off the rocks. Confirm your light is operational. Blackrock, do you copy? Lives depend on you, Tom. 8 people, 8 living people. Blackrock, respond immediately. Thomas's hand hovered over the switch, frozen, the faces in the windows pressed closer, leaving cracks in the glass that spider webbed across the surface. Behind him, he heard the door beginning to splinter, the wood cracking. Water poured under it now, spreading across the floor, rising higher. The smell of seawater and decay filled the room, choking him. 8 people on that boat, 8 living people who needed the light. 8 souls against hundreds, maybe thousands of dead ones. What was the right choice? What could possibly be the right choice? How could he condemn 8 living people to save the dead? But how could he condemn all these souls to eternal suffering? I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but I can't. There are people out there, living people. I can't let them die. I can't, even if it means keeping you here. Even if it means you suffer forever. Even if it means I join you. I'm sorry. He pulled his hand away from the switch. The light would stay on. It had to stay on. That was the job. That was the duty. That was the price someone had to pay. His grandfather had understood that. In the end, Samuel Brennan had kept the light on, right up until the moment he couldn't take it anymore, and now it was Thomas's turn to pay that price. They came for him then. The door exploded inward. A wall of water crashed through, and with it came the bodies. Cold hands grabbed his arms, his legs, his throat, pulling him down into the impossible water that filled the room. The water filled his lungs, and he couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, couldn't fight. Catherine's face loomed above him, her empty eyes somehow sad and grateful at the same time. She touched his cheek with frozen fingers, and he understood. This wasn't punishment. This was mercy. This was the only way any of them could rest. He had to become one of them. He had to join the watch, forever. As Thomas drowned on dry land, as the seawater that should not exist filled the lamp room, as his consciousness began to fade, he heard his grandfather's voice in his head, clear as day. Someone has to keep the light, boy. Someone always has to keep the light. Now it's your turn. Welcome to the Eternal Watch. Marcus Webb arrived on December 18th as scheduled, right on time, young and eager to begin his new position as relief keeper. He found the light still burning steadily, as it always did, as it always would. Thomas Brennan was never found, not his body, not even his belongings. His coffee cup was still sitting on the table, half full. His bed was unmade, his logbook was open. It was as if he'd simply vanished into thin air, disappeared without a trace. Hello, Mr. Brennan, it's Marcus Webb. I'm here for the relief shift. Mr. Brennan. The official report listed him as swept off the rocks during the storm, an accident, just like his grandfather before him, a tragic coincidence, terrible luck in a family of lighthouse keepers. The investigation was brief and perfunctory. These things happened at sea. The ocean was dangerous. Everyone knew that. Case closed. But Marcus found something else that first day, something that made his blood run cold. A new entry in the keeper's log, written in Thomas's hand. The ink was still damp, still fresh, as if it had been written just moments before Marcus arrived. December 15th, 1987, 11:47 p.m., lamp operational, keeper relieved of duty, next watch beginning, the light must never go out. The light must never go out, the light must never go out. The phrase was repeated over and over, filling the entire page, getting smaller and more desperate with each repetition, the handwriting deteriorating into barely legible scratches, until the final line was so small Marcus needed a magnifying glass to read it. Marcus spent 3 months at Blackrock Lighthouse. In that time, he saw things too, heard things, a woman singing lullabies in the night, faces in the windows, a rocking chair that appeared and disappeared. Water where no water should be, wet handprints on the glass, but he told no one who would believe him, and more importantly, the light had to stay on. That was the job. That was all that mattered. Everything else was secondary. Blackrock Lighthouse was automated in 1988, just a few months after Marcus left, unable to take it anymore. The official reason was budget cuts and modernization. The real reason was that no keeper would stay there longer than 3 months. They all saw things, they all heard things, and they all understood, eventually, what the price was for keeping that light burning, what it cost to keep ships safe, what it demanded from those who served. No keeper has lived there since. The lighthouse still stands on its lonely cliff. The light still rotates every night, guided now by computers and solar panels and modern technology. But fishermen still report seeing figures in the windows on stormy nights. And sometimes, when the fog rolls in thick and the wind dies down to nothing, they hear it, singing, always singing the same lullaby, and they see them in the water around the rocks, not drowning, not swimming, just standing beneath the surface, looking up at the light with hollow eyes, waiting, always waiting. Some say the sea keeps secrets, but the lighthouse keeps souls, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, trapped in the rotating beam, unable to move on, unable to rest, and every lighthouse keeper who ever served at Blackrock, they're all still there. Samuel Brennan, Thomas Brennan, every single one of them, still keeping the watch, still making sure the light never goes out, still paying the price because the light protects the living, but it imprisons the dead, and someone always has to keep the light. Always, forever.